And we're live.
Cool. I'm going to tune in live to our own YouTube to make sure that this actually works because I have trust issues.
Don't blame you. I know who's sitting behind this computer.
That looks like we're live. Do you want to add insult to injury by attempting to do a camera feed?
Sure.
Okay. While you set that up, welcome to MergePHP for folks who are online, also known as AwesomePHP for folks who are in person. These terms are interchangeable because we are actually on site here at Longhorn PHP in beautiful Austin, Texas.
Woo!
This is not the second Thursday of the month because we are not doing Longhorn PHP the second Thursday of this month because I don't have a time machine. MergePHP is a collaboration of a bunch of PHP user groups whose names are here on the screen, but I'll read them off anyway while we get the PHP community better. Kansas City, Las Vegas, Vancouver, San Diego, Portland, Seattle, Phoenix, Austin, Boston, Atlanta, and Utah. Because Utah is definitely a city, not a state. And here is a wall of logos of various user groups that comprise MergePHP. Longhorn PHP would not be here without the PHP community. Longhorn PHP is built by and for the PHP community. We are happy to be a host of an in-person version of MergePHP. I don't know whether Chris Bruck is online or expecting anybody to email him and get a Japanese license raffle ticket, but you should do it anyway and see what happens.
You should be here, Chris.
And if he actually checks his email, and you get an email back, which I think there are others of us that could potentially dispense a Japanese license. This works for not only the wonderful PHP IE PHP Storm, but also IEs for languages that you like less, like Golang, WebStorm, RubyMine, PyCharm, IntelliJ. License works for each of those, and if you want a bunch of GPUs to write code for you, JetBrains actually has first-class support for that with Juni's agent thingy, as well as agent control protocol for things like OpenAI Codex and Claude Code and Gemini Code and maybe some other stuff, as well as their AI chat thingy, which uses a variety of models, both cloud hosted and local. If you don't want to use AI for stuff, that's fine. It's a perfectly solid IDE that I still very much use day to day. Almost. Let's completely ignore the fact that I have PHP supported versions cut off there. This is the current state of PHP supported versions. We have a couple of versions getting security fixes only. If you are on a version older than that, unless your operating system has stuff baked into the distro that they are backporting security fixes, you are not getting security fixes. You have open CVEs. Please upgrade before somebody phones you. For the bottom two versions, those are in active support. They're getting bug fixes as well as security fixes. And PHP 8.5 will be releasing soon. I will defer on the exact date for that because somewhere here is a PHP 8.5 release manager. That person is not me. Upcoming conferences and events. There are a whole bunch of things in not the US. I think a couple WordPress events here as well. And of course you are here at this one. PHP Tech is the next conference after this in Chicago in May. For the benefit of the folks on the stream who might not be picking up background audio, the the CFP closes at the end of the month, therefore you have a few precious days to slam together a talk abstract, and then another one, and then another one, and then submit all of those to, are y'all still using Sessionize? Okay, to submit those to the PHP Tech Sessionize before the CFP closes. Mind you, do that. And yeah, whether this is your first conference talk or your 100th conference talk, submit there and let the PHP Tech organizers decide whether your talk's good enough to present at their conference or not. If you want to be sociable for some reason with MergePHP, we are occasionally on Twitter. We are on Mastodon or the Fediverse a bit more, which means you can access us from threads if you like Facebook flavored Fediverse. You can mostly find us on YouTube. You can also find us in the PHPC Discord, which all of y'all should be in. It's great. Next month, if I don't con an actual release manager into it, I'll be presenting about new stuff in PHP 5. Daniel, hint, hint. Beyond that, if you have a talk idea for MergePHP, I think we've got maybe one or two talks lined up for the rest of the year, but please definitely add to the queue here. And yeah, this is normally an online event that gets streamed to YouTube, freely available for the community. It's a great place to present. With that, tonight is a bunch of lightning talks, whether that is actually on something serious, in which case bring your laptop here. If you are in person, hook up to HDMI, speak into the podium mic so the screen can hear you. Or if you want to do some random slide deck karaoke or GPU-assisted slide deck karaoke, go for it. Also, if folks want to hop in online, there is a link on your screen to a Google Meet, which I'm going to hop into in just 1 second, because I believe one of the other folks that help organize MergePHP has a thing to talk through, and I need to, let's find out whether audio is before I do that, because otherwise it's going to be a very sad thing where you will not hear presenting. Audio kick. Got it. We're gonna do it live. If somebody is on YouTube right now, if they can grab that link and throw it in the chat, so it's actually helpful rather than just on slide. And then we wait for the same time. Here we go. Apologies for not knowing how to compute it.
Hey, well, I'm glad it's working. Can you actually hear me? Awesome. Let me share my screen and I will go ahead and get started. All right, I have minimized Google Meet and I'm showing my slides. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Awesome, then let's get started. So this is just something quick that I threw together. Ian said that he needed some short talks for Longhorn, and this is something that I did maybe just a little bit to troll Ian, but something kind of interesting nonetheless. So we're going to be counting airplanes with PHP. I'll just go ahead and start off warning you that this is going to be much about radios and airplanes as it is about PHP, but trust me, there is some PHP stuff in here. So I don't exactly remember when it started, but there's this thing called ADSB that most airplanes have a little box for it. It's something called Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast System. So it's automatic, and that it means that the pilots don't actually have to do anything to activate it. It's dependent because it depends on other systems on the aircraft. Surveillance allows air traffic control and other pilots to be able to see other aircraft, and broadcast is a radio thing that broadcasts. So what exactly does that mean? So when you have both airplanes and air traffic control, one of the ways that you can find out where there are other airplanes is by simply using radar to scan the sky and see where they are. But that just tells you that there is something kind of in the vicinity. It doesn't really tell you what it is. So ADSB was thought of to be able to make aircraft not only talk to each other and explain to each other who they are, where they are, but also to be able to provide more details to ATC about, hey, who exactly is that little blip that's moving around on your screen? So all of this transmits in the clear, so we can actually receive all these little packets that the airplanes are sending ourselves. So this is a photo of the actual equipment that I use to scan this here. So on the left, you can see is a Raspberry Pi. And on the right, that little blue dongle connected to a USB extension cable is actually a USB TV tuner and radio receiver. So these can be had, at least when I bought it, for under $10. And their main purpose is so that people can plug it into USB and watch over-the-air TV or listen to FM radio stations on their computer. But because you can tune to just about any frequency from, I think, like a couple megahertz up to about 1200 megahertz, it makes it really easy for us to just set that to be able to tune to 1090 megahertz, which is what ADSB operates on, and being able to capture all the signals that planes are sending in the vicinity. So once we got that installed, we can run this program called Dump 1090, which incidentally is written by the same author that initially wrote Redis. It's been forked since then, and a large community has grown around this. What Dump 1090 does is it will actually listen to the raw packets that TV tuner stick, known as a software-defined radio, is actually outputting, and it can decode things and actually understand the packets on there. So this Dump 1090 streams data over a TCP server in this format called SBS1. I'll have a link at the end of the slides where you can read more about that information protocol. But you can also just run netcat on your command line and actually look at the raw data stream coming through. Now, this is not a traditional HTTP request and response where you hit a URL and you get some payload back. This is an actual streaming endpoint where packets just continually come through. There's no opening or closing of the session. So what does that actually mean? So normally when we're building web pages with PHP, you have the browser or the client or whatever. It opens a connection to the server. The server responds with a connection. The client issues something like maybe a GET or a POST request in there. The server responds with that data, and then it closes the connection, and that's it. So H2 kind of changes that a little bit, and that you can kind of leave the socket open, if you're going through to get, multiple files like images or something like that. But generally, HTTP requests are sort of, open connection, get data, close connection. Whereas with streaming, once we open that connection, the server immediately responds with data. Now, if there's maybe no planes flying overhead and there's a bit of pause in data, it'll just, kind of sit there, wait. The connection will still be open. There'll just be no data being transmitted back and forth in there. But then as soon as the server has something more to send, it will just immediately send it. The connection's not really closed unless one side, needs to close it for some reason. Maybe the browser disconnects or the server's deciding it's rebooting, so that's going to close the connection. But for the most part, you're just going to be continually receiving that stream data. In this case, there's nothing for the client to send back to the server because the server's not listening for any packets. But yeah, it'll just continue streaming out towards the client. So this is a raw look at what some of the packets can come through there. And, we could probably parse that ourselves. Let's just take a look at what's in the particular message. So each message is going to have a unique identifier for the aircraft. The rest of these may or may not be in certain packets. Remember, this is not a radio talk. This is a PHP talk, so I'm not going to explain about why some things may or may not be in there. But you have something like altitude, speed, track, location, and squawk code, which is a 4-digit number that air traffic control assigns to different flights to be able to identify them as they move across the world. So each of these messages are sent somewhere between 0.1 and 2 times per second. When the aircraft is moving or otherwise in the air, those location messages are going to be sent twice a second. So that makes it pretty easy for us to be able to find an airplane when it's crossing by. Even if the signal's kind of weak, we're getting 2 per second. So the chance that we're going to be able to decode 1 is fairly high. So like I said, each packet's going to contain a unique identifier for each plane. It's always going to be a 24-bit hex code. Note that this is not the tail number that you're going to see printed on the plane. It's actually a code that is assigned to each aircraft and generally does not change throughout the course of the plane's lifetime. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to store the hex code, and we can look up what aircraft it is later and do some analytics based on that. There's some open source database that have the hex code, registration type, model, and more information about the airplane. So we can kind of use that to count what's going above us. So because this is a streaming connection, we can't use something like file get contents or PHP's curl thing or any other HTTP type of request, because those particular methods are going to wait for a connection to close before it returns any of that string data. But luckily, PHP does have some built-in stream handling methods. And if you have a favorite PSR 7 implementation, they definitely implement some of those things there too. They're just generally going to be wrappers around the built-in PHP methods. So what would that look like if we were just to use the plain PHP things? We'll use the stream socket connect function, and we'll give it the address to our streaming server there. And then we'll, inside a while loop, we'll call the fget function, fgets to get a string. And that's going to give us a string all the way up until there's a new line character, up to and including that new line character. So it's going to go ahead and display that in there. So just as a sort of starter script, we can run this to make sure that we're actually able to connect across our network to the server that might be running on a different place than we're running our PHP script on there. So if we were to run this, we would just kind of see a continual data stream as if we were connected directly into there. So the fun part now begins to where we actually parse that data. And there being a sample, again, of that data that would be coming through for each line. So we could either do it ourselves, kind of looking at that data stream, or we could look at something that's proudly invented elsewhere. In this case, there's actually a composer package available from AFK11 called SBS1 that will actually decode all these messages. So what does that look like when we actually put that in there? So we have a little bit of a, some boilerplate setup. And then we just look and make sure that the message is of the right type, and then it has a hex identifier code. And then as soon as we have something like that, we can go ahead and do something with that code. In this case, I'm choosing to use Redis, not because dump 1090 was originally written by the same author, but because we can get several of these messages per second from different aircraft. I don't want to deal with going to disk for either flat files or a database because it's possible that those might not be able to catch up. So what we're going to be storing these on is a hash, and a hash works exactly the same way as a PHP array. Each hash has a bunch of string keys, and then the values can be anything you want in there. In this case, we'll store the key as the hex code, so that way, whenever we've seen the airplane, we'll just have a key for that, and we're not necessarily storing hundreds or thousands of different data points for each particular message in there, because in this case, all we're really concerned about is counting the airplanes and not necessarily seeing information about the messages that we received. For the value, we don't really technically need to store anything because it is just a hash map, so we're only really interested in the keys of the hash. So we could put nulls in there for the value, or maybe the first time that we saw the airplane. But in this case, I'm going to count the number of times that we've seen each aircraft. I have noticed that sometimes you'll get like one message from a particular aircraft, which is Very rare if something was going to be flying over. If you just get one particular ID in there and you never see it again, it's likely a decode error. So the reason I'm storing the number of times that I've seen each aircraft is just so I can filter out those ones or maybe ones and twos. So the actual Redis command that we're going to use is the h incr by. So h for hash, and then we're going to be incrementing the actual value of the hash. So in this case, the name of the hash, which is the same as the variable name as if you had like an associative array in PHP, is going to be ADSB :planes : the date. Now, colons, just to separate different parts of things, is just kind of a convention that's used in Redis. You really could put anything you want in there. So in this case, I have the name of the hash, or as in PHP, the name of the variable is today's date, so that way I can count the planes for today. The second thing we're going to do is the key, and then we're just going to set that we increment that key by 1. Now, Redis is pretty awesome in that if that key doesn't already exist, it's going to initially set it to 0 for us and then increment it by 1. So if we get a code for something we've never seen before, boom, we're instantly going to put it at 1. And so then every time we receive a message from that particular aircraft, we'll just continue incrementing it over and over and over. In PHP, if you have the PHP Redis extension installed, or Redis works pretty much the same way, we can just call the same method in there, key, field, and the value that we're incrementing things by. So if we put that all together, it's pretty much the same as the code we saw 2 slides ago. We're connecting to that stream on the right IP in the port, and then every time we get a message, we're just running that h anchor by in there. And that's really all we need to do to be able to count the planes. Then we need to be able to go ahead and pull that data out. And for this, we're going to run hash get all, or h get all, with that same name of the hash that we had in there. And the data that comes out, because it's just a hash, it's just a pretty simple table kind of thing. If we were to actually look at that and do it like a print R inside PHP, it looks just like a plain old array, because that is how Redis is going to be returning it to us. So in this case, we can see the hex code of each plane that passed by, and then the number on the right is going to be the number of messages that we were able to receive from that aircraft. So if we want to then correlate all the types in there, we're going to go and grab that third-party database that I did mention a few slides ago, and I do have links to that towards the end of the talk, and we can see here that these particular hex codes correspond to those different types of aircraft. And from there, we can sum up that data, and this is the actual information of what flew over my place, or what flew within radio range of my receiver yesterday. So Boeing 737 is obviously the most notable type here, with Alaska Airlines and Delta Airlines both flying a whole crap ton of them to SeaTac Airport. So since we are kind of, just drinking from that fire hose, and we have a whole bunch of information there, you could do something a little bit more complex besides just counting the airplanes. Since we do have information about speed, altitude, heading, and other things, we could possibly, sort of correlate those. And if it looks like it's something that just took off from the Renton Airport, we might assume that it's a brand new 737 that's going on its maiden flight. And hey, we could go out and take a picture of an airplane going on its very first ever flight. Wouldn't that be cool? So if you want to take a look at the code that I've written, it is just 3 files in there. The first one is the one that we had initially for streaming the data, has a little bit more robust error handling around it. The second one will actually go ahead and download that aircraft database and store it in a MySQL database for us. And the third one actually generates the graph. If airplanes or radios is interesting to you, I definitely encourage you to check out the DEF CON Aerospace Village talks. They're all right here on YouTube. They go into a vast number of things, ADSB and not ADSB related. If you want to set up your own little feeder and you happen to have a small single board computer, such as a Raspberry Pi laying around, adsb.im is a great little package that can help get that set up for you. The SPS decoder I used there, and a description of its protocol is there as well. And then finally is a link to the database that I used to have everything in there. And that's all I have. I'll check the stream for any comments, but other than that, I will turn it back to you, Ian.
All right. He says that he's trolling me and actually puts together a higher quality presentation than the average presentation I give. I don't know what to do with that. Yep. So with that, we have a decent chunk of time to get some other folks up here or virtually, but I'm going to assume that's going to be folks up here because
I have all y'all in a room, and I can just like stare you down until somebody comes up to present to give a line of talk. Or we can just kind of sit and hang out and wait for you folks watching this from staff for nothing. What is it? I'm gonna leave the. Okay, come up here and rush through your HTTP3 thing if I can speak. Make sure to make it quick. Alright, oh wait, no. In my bag. No, I don't know. Hey, give me a second here. Give me a second here. Alright. Plug the screen in. Give me a second. Assuming people online can hear me, trying to buy time. Alright. Listen. Alright. Yes. This is also going to talk about this at Uncon, but I'm going to rush less. Alright, so HTTP goes up to 3. Let's rush through this really quick. Parts of slide didn't load, try reloading? Come on. Okay. HTTP 1, send request, get response, easy. Everyone's familiar with that paradigm. So HTTP 1, good for Google search. Send a request for what I want to Google, you get a response. If you want to play Minecraft, it's a bit tricky. HTTP 2, in theory, enables bidirectional freedom communication, maybe. It's a bit much though. So okay, but here's the power of HTTP 2. Google made something called Google Remote Procedure Call. They try to say it stands for something else now. It's Google Remote Procedure Call. It's a way to split Google into 1 trillion microservices and everything flying around like these. It's kind of horrifying. So it doesn't quite work that good, specifically JavaScript. So you have JavaScript, you try to do HTTP2 bidirectional stream communication, is not supported in that. It's supported in everything else except for JavaScript in the browser, which is weird, because, like, wait a second. What's wrong with JavaScript? I'm just going to leave this here while the other slides load. Alright, I don't know why. Oh, there it is. Yes. So, but Google owns JavaScript. They own everything. They're like a huge monopoly. Why can't they do it? Someone told me it's because the streams cross, they fight over the connection. You can't cross the streams. But HTTP3 has an out-of-order feature that makes this possible. So if you crank it up to 3, then you have bidirectional streaming, including client-side JavaScript. So how does that? You do that? You switch from TCP to UDP for HTTP3. So Quick is like a transport layer, but it's kind of on top of UDP. I'm not sure how it works with the layers, because like UDP is supposed to be layer 4. Is Quick also layer 4? Or is it like layer 4.5 or something? But it's like UDP. Quick is on top of UDP, and then HTTP3 is on top of Quick. So it requires TLS. Which is a bit inconvenient, but there's a good reason for that. And my slides do not load as fast as I try to go through this presentation. But WebSockets, you can replace WebSockets with HTTP3. It's maybe faster. How do you serve HTTP requests? I don't know. All right, thanks. Bye. I will go a lot slower, a lot slower in my uncon talk. We will actually get into like. I'm going to keep this up here for now so that if we have anybody joining on stream, that they know where to go. Other than that, keep this here. We'll hang around until 7 something, and then around then I'm going to tell speakers to actually go to speaker dinner with me. And for everyone else, check Discord for where she's there for food presentation of the group. Yeah. Stillwater and full screen. Do this. Okay. Hey. Okay. So, this is just a very quick run through of one of the new features in command plus better. Okay. So, most of the time it's the same thing, but here we are. So, please bear with me. So, one of the new features in PHP 8.5. Stick around for the conference. There's a whole section on all of them coming later. This is just one of them. But this is the one that I worked on, so it's what I'm going to talk about. Is pipes, the pipe operator, which is this little thing here. These two characters are incredibly powerful because all it really does is take the thing on the left and pass it as an argument to the thing on the right, which seems kind of stupid and pointless until you start doing it multiple times. When you start doing it multiple times, you can now build a chain of, I want to do this thing, and take the result and put it in this thing, and take the result and put it in this thing, and so on. Which, turns out, lets you write some very nice, compact code. So, that's the general syntax. So, it lets you write this, instead of this or something even uglier. Because this is annoying, and oftentimes the variables are a different type, and your static analysis tool will yell at you if you use a variable to say something that's a different type. So this lets all that go away. Who has written code before where they've had a function that did a bunch of stuff and then called another function with its results and just returned that, and that other function called This lets you go from function A called B called C called D to function A pipes to B, pipes to C, pipes to D. Great. Now you can test all of those independently of each other without having to call all the way down that chain. Blah, blah, blah. Yes. The way to answer that is to explain how it actually works internally. The pipe actually will translate back into that temp variable thing. So it all happens at compile time and turns into temp variables. So if you have a type error, it will throw a type error just like anything else. If something throws an exception, the exception gets thrown just like anything else. So it literally all it is syntax sugar for a temp variable to be passed into the function to call it each time. Mm-hmm. This is my second attempt at this, and Sarah Goldman had tried before me. That was in like 2015 or something. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how long. Hers was a bit different. So the biggest difference there, and this actually leads into something we're working on right now, is her version was based on hack, which has the pipe operator exists in a bunch of languages. Hack is the only one that pairs it with, on the right side, you have an expression, not a function. And you had a special $$ operator, which was where you would put the value being piped through, and you had to use those together. I felt that was a bad design, even though it meant that, you know, its one redeeming factor is that we could have a token called tbling, but she never took that to a vote. So I decided to split it. So there's pipe, and now I'm working on partial function application for PHP 8.6. Fingers crossed that happens. Probably it'll pass, I don't know. Anyway. Damn straight. So, I want to get to some of the examples here. So, most of these examples are based off of actual code I've written using a bridge library that I wrote several years ago. So, if you want to take a string and convert it from snake case to camel case or whatever, you just pipe through a few steps. Most of those steps you can reuse between different approaches. The actual code this is pulled from is actually in Sturdy, my serialization library. There's like 5 steps. One of the steps is a method that has pipes of its own. But they're all reusable. So it's just, you can just look at it and say, oh, I take this string, I split it, I implode it, and I lower it. I can see exactly what's going on here, and I can test all the pieces individually. Want to do it differently, you know, lower camel case, do that. This is a fun one. I wanted to get all of the tags from all of the widgets. So I can take the array and run array column on it. So I get the tags from each of them. Then I array merge them into one big list. Then I array unique to get rid of duplicate, and then I reorder it, you know, reindex it back to the list. Boom, 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 boom. You can see every step along the way. I didn't care about sorting in this case. No, unique doesn't care about sorting. One more way that PHP is better than other languages. So for the folks remotely, someone in the audience said that in a lot of languages, array unique requires that the array be sorted, and that's not the case in PHP. So this is the equivalent you would do old style. Don't do that. Yeah, and it doesn't even fit on the screen, so it's clearly worse. Talks about this, we're going to have, yeah, instead of A equals B equals C equals B. You can just now pipe them through. Now you'll notice here we have a lot of this function or array reps things. That's because if you have a function that takes multiple parameters, you need to pre-provide the parameters to it except for the one that you're passing through on the pipe. Partial function application, which I hope to get into 8.6, fixes that. It makes that easier. In the meantime, there's another option. You know, here's what it turns into. It's so much nicer. If you have a couple of just higher order functions that wrap that logic for you, and I have a library called FP that has a bunch of these built in already, then all right, you just provide a map with a callable, and it will pass that callable and the thing you provide later to array map. This makes it a bit syntactically nicer. Now you can do that. Oh, I want to map an array of stuff through something? Cool. And then I want to filter it, and I want to whatever. Which looks an awful lot like what people thought you would get with scalar methods, if that ever happened, which will probably never happen. But we don't need it anymore, because just a little compiler trick gives us something pretty close. And it works on any type. And here's all of this is a single expression, because it's a bunch of types and a match state. What if we could use, you can use a generator with the thing too, and you've got a screen with some utility stuff going on. Oh, I'm going to open this file, I'm going to roster screen it, I'm going to break it into lines, map across that, map across that, map across that. I just built an importer in 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lines of code. I just built an import system, complete with nice types. The right small tools can go a long way. And I think that's enough of a tease. Any questions? It looks like you have a function that returns a temp variable, then temp variable is passed to the next. So it should step through each one. I believe Garrick actually added some extra hooks into the implementation for that. But yes, Garrick does great work. The questions for step debugging, how that works. And what it's supposed to do is you treat each one of those as a separate function call, as if you had all of them in one big line, just inside out, which is ugly, but Xdebug knows what to do with those, and it'll know what to do with this too. Other questions? So version 2, which did not pass, it worked. The main difference is implementation. Version 2, which I wrote and didn't pass, worked by doing a parser trick. So it actually parsed from, if you had, foo arrow bar, it would parse that into bar paren foo. And then everything else is the same. That ended up doing some weird things. That level of trickery in the parser tends to bite you. This version, it actually is a proper symbol that gets passed to the compiler, and then there's a compiler operation where it says, all right, I've hit that symbol, I've got the AST tree, and here's how I'm going to compile that to opcode. So that's the main difference between 2 and 3. 2 also waffled back and forth on like how to deal with references, because I didn't fully understand at the time how to deal with those well, and V3 actively goes out of its way to prevent you from using references. So this is not compatible with a function that takes a parameter by reference, which is good because you should not be doing that with these kind of functions. That's not the point. Stop it. If you want. Exactly. So someone said what about sort? Sort in PHP operates on an array in place. In most other languages, there's a sort operation. There's also a sorted operation. That, for whatever reason, that's the standard name, which returns a new value that is sorted. Now, PHP doesn't have that built in, but writing that in user space as a wrapper around sort is 2 lines of code. Well, more than that because of PSR, for CS, but the method, the function to do so is 2 lines in the body. So you can have a sorted function that you can pipe through here just like anything else. Same for reversed or other things like that. So guess what? Writing little utility functions is cool again. But methods work perfectly well too. You don't have to use functions. Any callable will work. All right. Thank you very much. Who's next on the altar?
Attention. All right. I believe there's somebody asking why I won't let them into Team Meet. It's because Larry is Welcome to MergePHP. You are now live. Welcome to MergePHP. I'm your host, Cannot Use a Computer. How are you doing? You can unmute. So, since I successfully scared you away, anybody here in person? Sure, go ahead. Code of conduct still applies. Yes, you may. See what you did there. We're going to have wonderful surprises for that.
So my daughter is 10 and she's a Girl Scout. And Girl Scouts, they do a lot of fun stuff. And it turns out that it requires a lot of parents to also help. And so I am also a Girl Scout. And last year, my first major year with Girl Scouts, they were like, hey, we need more adult volunteers and we need help with cookies. Who here has heard of Girl Scout cookies? Yeah, okay. Who's bought them before? You know? Okay. It turns out that's actually a fundraiser, and they're not just selling cookies for you to eat, you know? But, I've watched a lot of girls really like change. So a lot of girls, a lot of people in general, but you know, I'm working with girls, so I keep saying that. They're really shy and they have a hard time like coming out and like talking to people and being direct and things. And it's really fun to like set up a booth and like encourage them to talk to people, strangers, and like, would you like to buy some Girl Scout cookies? And like teaching them like sort of cultural manners things, like even if they say no, you say that's okay, or have a nice day, or you know, just this kind of stuff, and really watch people bloom and blossom. I remember one girl in particular. She was really quiet, and it was her first year in our troop. I think it was her first year in Girl Scouts, and I was like, hey, if you will talk to 10 people that come out of the store that we were out in front of, I will buy a package of Girl Scout cookies, and I will give you some of the cookies. And she's like, okay, and it like clicked immediately, and I never had to bribe her for the rest of the season. She did really well, but like, it was crazy. Like, she was so quiet, and she became very outspoken, and just need a little bit of nudge and attention and motivation. And importantly, where's the hockey? So there are a lot of cookies. Some come and go each year. This year there's a brand new cookie. It's called Explore More's. And it is a cookies and cream inspired, or is that true? No, sorry, I misspoke. I knew it was wrong. It's a Rocky Road inspired cookie. So, you have a new reason to try Girl Scout cookies this upcoming Girl Scout season. Most of your favorites, I'm sure, will also be available. And it helps girls to do fun things like go to camps and go to theater productions. We're going to go watch a local theater troupe well, I'm not, because I'll be here, but back home, my daughter will go with the troupe to see a local theater production. They help the community, they pick up trash and do various kinds of service activities. They learn valuable skills. I already mentioned sort of the social ones, but they learn all sorts of skills. It's a great activity, especially like sort of COVID killed a lot of our social stuff that goes on. Girl Scouts was no exception, and like supporting these activities for kids is great. So you can get some great new cookies and support some Girl Scouts. So that's all.
So I've got room for one more person to use my machine before I pack it up for speaker dinner stuff. So if you want to present and don't want to fumble with HDMI or audio out for a solid 30 seconds and can either find slides or present extemporaneously by, I don't know, asking ChatGPT to do something here, then you can come up here, or you can join the Gmeet if you are on attending this virtually. Okay. Yes, you may.
All right. So this past week, Claude released Claude Skills. Anybody tried this? Claude Skills is really interesting because it's kind of talked about as agent skills, but when they launched Claude Skills, it actually launched with full support for Claude and Claude Code. And so what it is it's so if you're familiar with Claude, you've used you probably used like Claude.md, right, as kind of a way to kind of tell Claude what you're doing. But like, what's the problem with Claude.md? Well, number one, it like has all of this stuff that it shoves into your context for your project, and it's very generalized. If you're working on a really large project, like Claude.md, you can't put everything you need to know about your project or everything about something. And I'll use a really good example for what I've been using it for, which is I'm working on a legacy code base, and I'm slowly generating tests for it. And so what I'm doing is I use Claude Skills, and they have, so if you go to the Claude Skills on GitHub, they actually have a skills that you can install that writes skills for you, or helps you to write skills. And a skill in Claude Code, you sometimes see them as zip files, which is what you're going to see if you're going to use the Claude UI, like the desktop app. But you can put them in your project in .claude/skills/skill name, and then there's a directory. That directory has a skill.md file, which has some front matter information up at the top that gives a name and a description. But that directory becomes a slash command inside of Claude Code. So I now have a slash command where I can say create feature test, and then I can pass in some information. And that skill file is over 1,200 lines of code, 1,200 lines of markdown that is essentially full of things like one-shot information and examples about what to do, where to find particular things, the types of assertions that I want to do. So instead of shoving all of that into a context file that's just generalized, the skill files are actually like, you can have a single skill file that has all the information, or you can have custom Python and PHP scripts. You can have multiple markdown files that have all the information about how to do a particular thing, so that you're not shoving all of this stuff inside of your context, which 200,000 tokens is a lot. But the cool part is that, like anything else, though, it's just a markdown file. So you can actually go through and use the Claude skill, have it generate the test, give it feedback about what it's done, and then say, hey, Claude, go back to the skill and now re-update your skill file with all the information we've talked about. And it will go through and it will do that. And the next time that you use that skill, it's better. And you do that 3 or 4 times, and the next thing you know, you've basically kind of built a custom GPT that can do a really particular task. And if you're trying to do things like have consistency across test generation or factory generation, which is the 2 things that I'm using it for right now, or whatever, I've really found that Claude skills are actually pretty dadgum cool. Check them out.
So this is the part where we have time for one more lightning talk, but not with my mission.
Hello, everybody. So, you were, and your badge is below, and I don't have my glasses, so I can't see it. But what I want to do, I want to show entire screen. I'm going to start mirroring. So, I got the Claude skills up here, but I'm not going to talk about that. We were talking about Filament earlier. I am a Filament fan, Filament PHP. Anybody here heard of it? Anybody here use it? You've heard of it. Who uses it daily or weekly? Okay. Anybody using version 4 yet? Okay. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of this. I was going to try to do a start from scratch, and I might try to do that. I've got Herd up here. I'm going to Laravel new LHPHP 2, none, and see what we can do. I have a couple things. If I can't get this done quickly, I'll jump to that. But it is, this is a server-side driven or server-driven UI. I tell some of my clients this is a UI toolkit, much like, not specifically Vue or React, but I don't know, what would be another equivalent to this that isn't Vue or React? Like Mary, or not Mary, but like there's Vue, Bootstrap, Vue, something, pardon? Well, pre-done components, I guess tailwind components would fall into that, but pre-done components that, pardon? I don't know, I haven't used Polymer, so I don't know, but it could fit in there. So I'm gonna now install this, and then I'm gonna see if I can go in my history and do one other thing. I'll bring this up and say, let me open a new project. Third LPHP. Let's go back there. And there are good setup instructions for this. I'm presuming not everybody here necessarily does Laravel, but you're probably at least familiar with some of this stuff. Some of the concepts here. I'm going to walk through documentation. Get started, and there's a couple of commands. This tells a little bit more about what server-driven UI is. It's all server-side stuff. But one of the things that I really do like about this is I can build a lot of decently interactive stuff without having to write any JavaScript. So I'm going to go into my IDE in a moment, but I'm doing a setup here, and it says, what is your panel's name? One of the default ways of organizing your code and your UI is in what Filament calls panels, and they're collections of components. So I'm going to call this main, and I don't want to star it. They really want to get the stars. That's how they get the stars. There's also one more thing I got to do here. I'm going to make a user. I'm going to call it demo, a demo at Kismal.com. Please don't email that. Demo is not passive. So what I've done here, I've got the awesome herd, so I should be able to do this. If I go to, I made a panel called main. I'm going to log in as demo at Kismal.com, demo. So I have a panel. I have something here. This is all done. Now, I'm going to make a couple of things here in... I don't know where my terminal is. There's the terminal. Artisan make. How we do make migration. Is it like a... No, is it a model? I want to make a model. I'll do the standard book, whatever. Book. How is that? Did I do that? Why don't I have that? Create this book. Oh, that's binding in file. I'm going to jump back to the other version because some of you have probably already seen doing that kind of stuff, making models and stuff. So over here in the original LHPHP test, I've created an author, I've created a book, I've created migrations for that, I've created models. The next thing that I did, that standard Laravel CRUD stuff, I created resources, Filament resources, and one of those was make Filament resource author, make Filament resource book. A resource is a wrapper around a model, and it provides some other Filament-oriented things. You get it. It gives you a way of presenting a table of the information, all your records. It gives you a way of creating edit screens and view screens and so on. So if I come here and look at authors, I have authors here. I can do, somebody give me a name, any name. That's too much for me to type, so I'll just type the well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Demo is a good name, but well, we have this. I was doing Tur there before, but give me a name of a book. Why did that? Okay, it has no. God, one, I guess. So I have to choose the author here. Yes. There's a lot. There's a lot of different authors here. Let me jump into it for a moment because this is what makes Filament Filament. So I'm going to jump over into looking at the resources. So let me look at a book resource. I have resources here, authors and books. I have a book form, which we're at right now. And this is really, how do I make this bigger? I guess double that. So this is the definition of this form. We've got a title, we've got an ISBN, and we have an author. We have a database relation between the two, or it's an ID point to something. But over here, we can say we need a basic text input, we need a basic text input for title, ISBN, but we can do a select on the author ID. We're going to say the relationship, this is the author in the book, the Laravel author thing. We're going to point to the name, and we want to make this searchable. If this wasn't searchable, this would just be it'd be that. If I make it searchable, it's that. I can also do preload. I think it's preload. Anybody done this? So there's a few that are preloaded. I think you can say 20 or 50 or something like that. But it's doing a live search, live type ahead. But I made these required, so it does the standard required thing. Now, required is just an element, an attribute. That's not really a JavaScript thing, but this alone has blown some minds when I've shown people like, oh, here, just do this. Just make it type ahead. Literally just search. Just make this searchable, and you don't have to deal with... I haven't done it in a while, so I sort of forget the overhead of making searchable stuff, all the JavaScript stuff you got to bring in. So, this is version 4, which came out a couple months ago. It's been fairly recent. I still have a very large 3 project, which I don't know how I'm going to migrate, but newer projects have started to been in 4. There were definitely some performance issues with tables in particular. Whatever benchmarks say, my own experience on tables, the table component with a lot of data in it, it's 2 to 3 times faster for most stuff. It's not like a 10x faster, but actually I'll show this real quick when I'm meeting a table here. I've got 3 authors, but I made this searchable as well too. So it's just the definition of the author. I'll be done in just a moment here. Or maybe I was done a while ago, but I'll stop in a moment. Authors. So my table, my author table here is a definition. Give me the name, give me the created at, give me this, searchable, sortable, all these things that, and even if you have React and Vue components, if you've got some of the stuff, or inertia, that's another. I came from the inertia world. It didn't jive with me. This jives with me a lot more for a lot of the use cases that I have. So I'm going to give it up now and say thank you for watching and listening. Thanks for the prompt to get up here. I'd like to talk about this more at some point. If anybody wants to talk more Filament, love to talk more. Thank you.
Bye, everybody on the stream.